and your children are turned into mindless vassals who now they look up to some twit instead of looking up to Thomas Jefferson or looking up to Nikola Tesla or looking up to Magellan. I mean, kids, Magellan's a lot cooler than Justin Bieber. He circumnavigated with one ship the entire planet. He was killed by wild natives before they got back to Portugal. And when they got back, there was only like 11 people alive of the 200-something crew, and the entire ship was rotting down to the waterline. That's destiny. That's will. That's striving. That's being a trailblazer, an explorer, going into space, mathematics, quantum mechanics, the secrets of the universe. It's all there. Life is fiery with its beauty, its incredible detail. Tuning into it. They want to shatter your mind talking about Justin Bieber.
Hello out there. We're on the air. I'm joined today by my lovely co-host, Arnie Boy. It is a little bit chaotic here right now. So the first, 10 minutes here might be a little bit off, but check things out here. This is what we're dealing with. Holy moly. Thought this was over. Walking around in freaking shorts on the weekend. Now we got this again. Yeah. Anyways, this show today is titled Henry Ford Almost Invented Bitcoin in 1921. 100 years ago. Could you imagine? 100 years later, and most people still haven't figured out what the hell's going on here and why this is so important. So we're going to spend some time talking about that today. We're going to talk about Henry Ford's idea. We're going to talk about the flaws in that idea. We're going to talk about Bitcoin. We're going to talk about why Bitcoin would have actually failed before 2009 when it was the first Genesis block was mined, and a couple more things. So I don't even know what episode this is now or lesson, I should say, because last week we had a shit show as well. I think this is 19. I don't think we can count last week's because I didn't put a lesson up. But anyways, let's see what happens here. Premium update. Okay. I see a lot of people over in Rumble this morning. Good morning, Rumble. So we're on Rumble, we're on YouTube, and we're on Zapstream, of course. And we got some big zaps to start the day today over on the Noster chat. Wow. We got Josh over there. Good crew. We should tell Nostra that we're live, though. YouTube's still snoozing by the looks of it. But Noster's alive, Rumble's alive. And we're going to proceed with the show here. We're going to start with a little bit of an update on the network, like we've been doing. And then we will... okay, I'm getting word to close the door here. Door's closed. Sorry, Arnie boy. I'll let him back in a bit. Okay. Should be all right. Man, it's gross outside. It was so nice like 10 minutes ago. I actually don't understand. Anyways, we got Sats and Sunset says it's less than 20. I think it's supposed to be, but I don't think we can count last week because we never really did a lesson last week. I just had one screen that I was running off of. So this is going to be 19, I believe. But anyways, yeah, no snow days for Jor. That's right. I'm inside, though, so I'm all right. Somebody here's got to travel, though, and it's not ideal travel conditions this morning, you might say. So anyways, we got Josh over there. We got Jake. Good morning, fellas. Josh with a big zap to start the show today. Seems kind of echoey in here today. Maybe it's because the door's shut. But can you guys, is the sound okay? Or just give me a thumbs up in the chat if the sound seems somewhat normal. Josh says, Arn and Luxter, bark and claw to dismiss liberal dipshits, eh? Thank you, Josh. Josh with 8,888 units of freedom, units of absolute scarcity. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate that, buddy. Good start to the show. Sat and Sunset Zap 2K. And I guess he zapped 100 too much today because this is showing less than 19. He's technically right. But anyways, I'm feeling orange today. I got the orange hoodie on, got the orange light on. Let's crank this up. Let's go full orange today. How about that? Like I'm like an egg getting cooked. I think that's okay. But Sats and Sun said zap 2K units of freedom and said no snow days for Jor. Thank you, Sats and Sunsets. We got Cannons here. Look at that, Cannon. Haven't seen Cannon for a while. For a whilst, you might even say. Cannon says, yo, sorry, it's been a while. Good to see everyone. Good to see you, Cannon. Thanks for the zap, buddy. You sent 888 units of freedom. Okay, let's let Noster know we're live here. Some point. Duncan's here. Duncan, the D and DCA, zapped 4298 today. That's $3 worth of US dollars, the equivalent of 4,298. Thank you, Duncan. Appreciate that, my friend, very much. And Duncan says, sound is good. Working but listening in the background. Thank you, Duncan. Glad to have you here this morning. Okay, let's let Noster know we're live, and then we can go full steam ahead here. Rumble, I apologize a little bit today because we're on the premium channel again. I think everybody has access to premium over there, though. I still don't know how Rumble works. We're trying it. We're trying it. But I just won't be able to bring up your comments on screen today, unfortunately. But I will see them. I will see them. Okay, so what do we got here? We got Scotty Boy said, do you zap what I zap? 99 sats. Thank you, Scotty Boy. And he said, hey, Cannon, how's it going with another 99er? And over in Rumble, we got a good crew. Holy man. We got Jen, we got Scotty, we got Kev Keith. Who else do we have? I don't know where they all went now. Anyways, let's carry on here. What do we got here? Marco says, Joe, I recommend that you do 100 push-ups and 100 squats every day. It will change your life. It's an easy challenge for you because you're disciplined and it's not a difficult task. I thought you were going to say, because you're looking a little fat. Cheeks are looking a little fat. No, that's a good call. I've been doing a little bit of a challenge myself. Not squats though. I should be doing more squats. We got a really nice rack here in the basement. It's just, I don't know. It's hard. It's a lot of time. But yeah, I do it pretty much every day. I do mostly pull-ups. I like pull-ups. I feel like it's full body. Although all those are push-ups, squats, pull-ups. I think the gym industry would go bankrupt if they knew how easy it was to actually stay in shape without the need of paying hundreds of dollars every month. But I think that's a Bitcoin thing. I think you kind of rethink your priorities and you pay a little closer attention to how you're spending your money and your energy, I guess you'd say too. But yeah, I mean, I was a victim of it for probably a decade. I paid $50, which is probably very low now. I don't even know what the going rate for a gym membership is these days, but it was about $50 a month for about a decade. Should have been stacking sats instead. I should have been doing push-ups at my house and stacking sats. I'd probably be on an island right now. Anyways, we're here. I'm here with you instead. With a little blizzard happening here. Little blizz. So island will have to wait. Someday though. Someday, not Sunday. Ginger's here. Good morning, Ginger. All right, let's get to her here, folks. Let's get to her. Let's check on the mempool first. How about that? So I kind of started the show a little bit different time today. I've been doing it. I did it yesterday too. I'm trying to bridge together the time change here because some people, the clocks change, some people doesn't. So I'm trying to find some in between there. But we should be pretty consistent going forward now once everybody's kind of back on schedule. Look at that. The snow's pretty much done now. Little blast there. Okay, what's going on in the mempool today? Yeah, just a heads up over in Rumble today. Everybody watching this on Rumble right now, I don't have a real efficient way of seeing your comments and everything. So if you don't mind, like Sats and Sunsets here, maybe just hop over to YouTube for the show today. That way I can see your comments. I can throw them up on screen and everybody can kind of be together. I know. But it's just, I'm trying to do these things for the Rumble creator thing, I guess you'd call it. I don't know. It's probably better for me if you stay on Rumble, but it's probably better for you if you go to YouTube. But just throwing it out there. So what do we have today? We got the block height of 940,126. So yesterday was a pretty big deal. And I figured it'd be a good day to talk about it today because yesterday we hit 20 million Bitcoin mined. I believe it was at the block height of 940,000, but I don't know for sure. But we hit 20 million Bitcoin mined. I guess we could do the math, but it'd probably take us about 2 minutes to do the math on it. And I don't know if we have time for that today. Jen says, never thought I'd hear you say, I know. I'm just telling you for your own experience today, your viewing experience. It would be better for me if you stayed on there, but for everybody here, just so I can see all your comments and stuff and bring them up on screen, it's probably better on the tubes, the boob tube. So that's what we got. 20 million Bitcoin have been mined. Pretty big day. And I think we'll look back on that one and say, holy shit, we didn't really realize the importance of that. So 20 million Bitcoin have been mined. The difficulty adjustment looks like we're a little bit behind, but we had 2 difficulties in a row with an upwards adjustment. First one was 15%. Last one was 0.45%, as you can see here. And it looks like we're falling a little bit behind now. So there could be a lot of different reasons for that. I think there's been some storms in the US, which might have redirected some of the hash rate, the energy going into Bitcoin for more needed sources, you might say. The price also being down for an extended period of time here. Some miners might just not think it's worth it to be contributing to the network. But we're going to talk about that today. We're going to spend some time talking about the difficulty adjustment in kind of a roundabout way, I guess. We talked a little bit about it last week, and I think that's the best way to do it is just to talk about it from a couple different angles and help everybody get a better understanding of the difficulty adjustment because it's pretty damn important. So look at that. We got a couple key things to look at here. Number one, I guess we're back in the 70,000s. I didn't know that. That's shitty for anybody who's buying Bitcoin. And if you got $1, you can get yourself 1,420 sats. 1 unit of trash gets you 1,421 units of absolute freedom. Supply, though, this is the big one right here. 20 million Bitcoin have now been mined officially. 20 million Bitcoin have been mined as of yesterday. So for the first 17 years and 2 months, 20 million Bitcoin mined. And for the next 114 years, how much? 1 million Bitcoin left. 1 million Bitcoin left to be mined for the next 114 years. That's pretty bananas, I would say. But that's how it works. And that's a little about what we're going to be talking about today. Duncan's over in YouTube. Scotty's over in YouTube. Good morning, guys. Noster's still going. I know not Scotty and Duncan are both big Noster advocates. So we got Noster still going. And we're going to open up the door here for Arnie in just a second. I can hear him scrambling around out there. Okay, so that's the time chain today. And you can see here that the Foundry was the winner of the last block. So we're going to come back to this. I don't want to spend too much time talking about this because we're going to be revisiting this in a second. A couple seconds, I guess. Let me get the door open up here for Arnie boy. He might return. He might return. He might not return though, too. Too soon to say. Okay. So yeah, I'm wearing my orange hoodie today because I shared a video yesterday and got a lot of comments in it, and not many of the comments were positive. And that's kind of been the case for the last couple months, I'd say, on YouTube. Just very bearish sentiment around Bitcoin. And reading through the comments and stuff, it's pretty clear to me that people misunderstand Bitcoin significantly. They don't understand what's happening here. They think they do. They think they do enough to leave a comment on YouTube about it. But usually when that happens, usually when the bears are out full force, that's usually when I'm most bullish, because that's a pretty good indicator that at some point in the future we're going to start going back up. That's the indication for me, is when you see comments like that consistently and almost like overwhelmingly negative comments in YouTube, we're usually about to rip. So we're going to be ripping. We're going to be ripping, I'd say. But that's why I threw on the orange hoodie today, and that's why we got the orange light on. We'll call it that. So with that, let's kick things off here. I got a little bit of news to share. I know there's still people coming in here, but next week, I guess this week, partially, we're going to start our Bitcoin school course officially. March 15th, 5 days from now, we're going to officially start the Bitcoin school course. So if there's anybody out there who just wants a better understanding of Bitcoin, I literally post a new video. Like, I film them every day. I film and post a new video talking about different topics within Bitcoin every day in the Bitcoin school, in the school platform, the YouTube, and the Patreon. But the course is going to officially start on the 15th. So we're going to go, it's going to be significantly more structured, in the sense we're going to do things in the right order. So the idea, the main goal by the end of the course, by the end of this year, 2026, is that everybody going through the course is going to be in a multi-sig setup. So multi-sig is kind of like the cream of the crop in terms of Bitcoin security. If you have a sizable allocation to Bitcoin, you want to have a multi-sig setup for your private keys. And so we're gonna take our time. We're gonna take the whole year. We're gonna cover a bunch of different topics. We're gonna kind of ease into it, and then by the end of this year, we're gonna have everybody hopefully into a multi-sig, or at least ready for a multi-sig. So that's kind of like the main goal of the course. And there's different ways to do it. There's different people already have multi-sigs out there. This isn't a real new concept, but the difference is, I think it's important to kind of just take your time instead of doing it over like a week or two. If you were to pay somebody a couple $1,000s to help you with it, it's just too rushed. You don't understand fully what you're doing. And I think that the best way to do it is very gradually and over time and consistently. And so that's going to start in 5 days from now. We're going to start working towards that. And we're going to have some pretty big changes on the school. So if you're somebody who's been kind of putting it off and delaying, I would say that you want to join before the 15th, because there's going to be kind of a cutoff there where everybody who's in the school group, the visionaries community before that, is going to have significantly more benefits in the future. And I don't want to get into the specifics, but I'm just going to tell you, if you are wanting to become a member, I would strongly consider doing it before the 15th of March when the course starts. So, and I'll have news coming up about that too in the following week, because next week around this time, we should have I'll be able to share kind of what's going to happen going forward in there. But join now in the next couple of days, and you're basically going to have access to everything forever. Whereas we're going to start splitting it up. So there'll be different tiers, different access. There'll be new members coming in, but before the 15th, that's kind of the cutoff there. So again, it's just school.com/88 sats, the visionaries community. And you can join us, part of the school, be part of the conversations. You'll get access to all the different courses and Bitcoin school as well. So shout out to Sats and Sunsets here. Looks like he gifted a membership to somebody there. And Jen got it by the looks of it. It is Jen this morning. So thank you, Sats and Sunsets. And congratulations, Jen. Sats and Sunsets, one of the most consistent supporters of the channel here. Makes a big difference. Holy Scotty boy. Lots of 99s over there. Okay, there's Arnie boy. Maybe? No, walked by. Thought about coming by. Okay, so let's get to her. Where's the spreadsheet here? We're not going to spend too much time talking about it because it's part of the lesson today. So let's kick things off here. Get right into it. And again, if you're watching this live today, you can throw some comments in the chat. And I usually save a little bit of time at the end of the lesson to do Q&A. And I try to answer every question, depending on how many we have. I try not to leave any questions unanswered. But just throw it in the chat. We'll get through the lesson, and then we'll have some time for Q&A after. So as mentioned here, the title of the show today is Henry Ford Almost Invented Bitcoin in 1921. Shout-outs today. Shout out to Gigi, my man. Gigi wrote a book called 21 Lessons, one of my favorite books in Bitcoin, 21 Lessons, what I learned from falling down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. And this 88 lessons is kind of inspired by that because I think that it is something that needs to be taken very slow. There's just so many different things to understand within Bitcoin. And again, I've been in Bitcoin for about 6 years now, I'd say, not as seriously, but for about 6 years. And I'm still learning new things every day. There's still a lot of topics and subjects within Bitcoin that I don't fully understand, but that's why I love just kind of taking it slow, taking a long-term lens with it, and just taking your time. And so with Gigi's 21 lessons, that's what inspired the 88 lessons here today and what we're working on. So shout out to Gigi, one of my favorite Bitcoiners to ever live. Second shout out here to Michael Saylor. He had this quote that said, people spend 100,000 hours earning money, going to work and earning money. And he said they should spend at least 100 hours learning how to keep it. So that's the idea with this. If somebody got through this whole course, it would be less than 100 hours, but I guarantee you'd have a very good understanding of Bitcoin. And again, that's kind of the idea with the Bitcoin school too. Again, I record and post a new video every single day in different topics around Bitcoin, because I think that's the best way to learn is consistently over time, long-term lens. And it's not something that you can rush. Nothing in Bitcoin should be rushed. There's no shortcuts in Bitcoin. So what was I trying to do here? I don't know. I had an idea there, but I forget what it was. Anyways, and then third shout out here to you, whoever's watching this right now, live or otherwise. Bitcoin here, we are first generation Bitcoiners. Remember that. We are first generation Bitcoiners, just like first generation farmers. Showed up, bought the land, added value, provided food for the community, and their main intention was to acquire more land. That was the goal of a first generation farmer. And that's kind of the same for first generation Bitcoiners, although a lot of people have it backwards, where they think that they're going to buy Bitcoin and flip it in a couple of years or make a big profit on it, buy low, sell high kind of thing. Just like the stock market, we've been trained to think that way. But the reality is that this is like scarce farmland in the cyber economy. And we should treat it as such. We shouldn't be looking at the price every day. We shouldn't be hoping that the price goes up so that in a decade we can sell it and trade it for more fiat dollars. The point here is you want to acquire as much as you can, add as much value to the world as you can, convert that value into Bitcoin and hold that in your family forever and acquire more of it. Just like farmers, they want to acquire more land. They're not checking the prices of their land every day to see if they can sell it tomorrow. They're instilling values within their family. They're adding value to the world. And their main purpose is to acquire more land. And so that's us. That's you watching this. And if you're taking time out of your busy life to learn more about Bitcoin and protect your Bitcoin better, you deserve a shout out because you're a pretty rare breed these days. New members, we got a bunch of new members actually. I forgot to bring this up, but we got a bunch of new members on the YouTube channel. And all the members on the YouTube channel are actually getting access to the Bitcoin School videos as well that I was talking about. So let me do a couple shout outs here quickly. Oh, we got Jen, new member, thanks to Sats and Sunsets. We got Banana Chan 2684 joined. Thrive and Prosper joined. Catherine L joined. Trevor B and Antinger. Those are the new members on the YouTube channel this week. So thanks everybody for the support. And I hope you're enjoying the Bitcoin School video. So again, Bitcoin School, brand new video every single day. We did this in 2025 too. And if you're actually in school, in the Visionaries community, you get access to all 365 days of Bitcoin videos from 2025. And I'm still doing videos every single day and sharing it as a part of Bitcoin School. So YouTube members, if you don't want to join the school, if it's a little bit out of your price range, you can also join on the YouTube channel as a member and get access to all those videos every single day. Sponsors, we have no sponsors. So it's people like, who did I mention there? Banana Chan, Thrive and Prosper, Catherine, Trevor B, Antinger, and Jen, as of this morning, thanks to Sats and Sunsets. You're the people that keep me going here. I have no sponsors. Nobody's paying me. Nobody has any influence over my voice. And I think that's important. I think it's more than important. I think it's critical, especially in this industry where there's a lot of bad actors, you might say. There's a lot of people pushing products and services they don't necessarily agree with so they can put food on the table. And I kind of understand it, but at the same time, I think it's so important to retain your voice and not have any sort of outside influence. And then you don't have to have a filter. You can speak whatever's on your mind without having to worry about the consequences from the people paying you. So that's what it is. And that's what people, the Zaps, the members in the community, that's essentially what keeps me going here. So shout out to everybody who has been supporting the channel that way. Helps keep us sponsor free. I don't think I'll ever have sponsors. I think that if times got tough enough, I would just shut down the channel because I've talked about it too much now. No turning back. So today we're going to get through the lesson here in a second. We're going to do some Q&A after. We're going to do our weekly smash buy. And if we got time, we'll give away some free Bitcoin. So a couple things here. I mentioned the goal of Bitcoin School there. You can see it school.com/88 sats. But if you're somebody who's in more of a rush, like if you got, let's say, a full Bitcoin that you want to protect tomorrow, then you can actually hire somebody. You can hire bitcoincitadel.net. And we got seven very experienced, very knowledgeable, very intelligent, very good educators over at Bitcoin Citadel. So if you need help with your cold card, if you want to set up a multi-sig, if you want our full 21 sats inheritance protocol, if you want more privacy, if you want a security audit, we got a bunch of different things. Help setting up a node, bitcoincitadel.net. All the services are listed on there. So I'm a part of that. So that's why I have no issues talking about it. Okay, so let's get to the lesson here. Let's bring this down for a sec. I'll bring up the lesson. And what do we got for time right now? 28. Okay. Try to keep it tight today. Well, I'll try, I should say. Will it happen? I don't know. Couple shout outs here before we get into things. Where's Noster? Where's Noster? I see Praetorian's in the YouTube chat. Shout out to Praetorian again for the early morning zap today. What time was that at today, Praetorian? Also one of the most consistent zappers of the channel here, supporters of the channel. What time was that at today, Praetorian? That was, well, we got a bunch of 99s in there today. Jen zapped 1, 2, 3, 4 as well. Thank you, Jen. Didn't see that till now. Praetorian was 2:39 in the morning, 2:39 a.m. He said, good morning, Jor and Visionaries. Welcome to another Timeless Tuesday. Happy stacking. Kind regards, Praetorian. Kind regards, Praetorian. Okay, so what did I miss here? We got a couple chats. YouTube's pretty quiet today, but we'll get to the lesson. And again, if we got any more comments in here, we'll address them afterwards. So crypto professor, reducing employee count, no increase in goods or services, but growing bottom line exponentially. Do we want this business model to catch on? Well, one thing I've learned, actually, I'm going to save this. I'm going to save this for after. I'm going to start it. We'll talk about that after. I'm going to get through the lesson first. There's Praetorian right there. T. Jacobson, one of the biggest supporters of the YouTube channel, always leaving nice comments. And I appreciate that. If you don't have the ability to support the channel with economic power, just leave some nice comments. It helps quite a bit, just like T. Jacobson. I appreciate it, man. I notice that kind of stuff. Senior Gringo Poppy says, won 100K. Scotty says, that was so last year. Yeah, no doubt. Nicholas, greetings from El Salvador. Good morning, Nicholas. Good to see you, buddy. Buy low, zap high. That's right. That's the correct one, Scotty boy. Bitcoin is only up 20% in 5 years. Well, it's a good thing we have a 50-year timeline. Jen, look at that. Matching the orange today. Matching the orange light and the orange hoodie. Hands off my sats. Jen says, George said YouTube sucks. I guess I got to read it. I didn't say that. I love YouTube. Actually. I do. I don't agree with everything that they do, but YouTube's been a big help in my life. So I really love YouTube. I'm not just saying that either. But thank you, Jen. $20 orange fiat zap today. Thank you, Jen. Marco says, I'm not paid to promote it. I'm honestly recommending the Visionary School. I know people probably feel like I'm pushing it, but I just want to make people aware of it. Because again, if you are somebody who shows up to these shows and you love listening to Bitcoin stuff and learning more, it's just an absolute no-brainer. It's very reasonably priced, all things considered. And actually, that's why I'm making some changes on the channel, because I just think it's too cheap. I really do. I think the amount of value in that community is worth probably 10 to 20x more. And so I'm going to bump it up a little bit. I'm going to make some different tiers. And so that's why I'm telling people, if you want to join, I'm giving you a bit of a heads up to join before March 15th. So a couple days from now. And I want to make sure everybody can watch this later and all that kind of stuff. So thank you, Marco. I appreciate that. Can't believe YouTube didn't censor that. Well, you threw a $20 bill behind it. So money talks. Money talks, Jen. All right. So what do we got here? We got Sin Diesel's over in the Zap stream. Good morning, Sin. He zapped an 18 and a 45. Appreciate that, buddy. Good to see you. Okay. So here we go. Let's get to her. Here. Things are working today. Okay. Let's just make sure we're ready to go here. So I got to update my time again. It's a nice relaxing stream today. We got snow. We got the blizzard happening outside. I don't know what happened to my music though. My music shut off. Hopefully my thing didn't die. Well, there it is. We're back. Okay. Here we go. Welcome to lesson number 19. This one's titled, Henry Ford almost invented Bitcoin in 1921. Or Bitcoin is the real energy currency. Or something like that. Bitcoin is the energy currency that Henry Ford wanted. So back in 1921, Henry Ford came up with an idea for an energy currency. And I'm going to bring up the article here in just a sec. But his big idea was that he wanted to end the centralization. He knew that gold wasn't going to cut it. And so he wanted to end the centralization that gold requires, trust. And his plan was to actually use an energy currency to end wars. That was his big idea. And I'm going to show you the newspaper article here from 1921. And we're going to talk about today why it failed. So here it is right here. Look at that. We got a couple different articles comparing it to Bitcoin. Ford predicted Bitcoin. So here's the article. We'll take a little bit of a zoom here. So it says Ford would replace gold with an energy currency and stop wars. So he said, declares if the government will give him Muscle Shoals plant, he can demonstrate success of a plan to substitute natural wealth. That's the key, natural wealth. Why? Because energy is natural. That's how the universe works. Bitcoin, energy currency, they're very much in line with nature. Because I'm sure we've all heard the law of the conservation of energy, which says that energy is neither created nor destroyed, only transferred. And a couple weeks ago, one of the lessons we did, the Bitcoin post office, is I explained why Bitcoin actually fits into that model. Bitcoin is in line with nature in that sense, that is natural. So natural wealth as a basis of the world's money. So again, this was in 1912. I know it's cut off there, but it's 1921. 1921, Henry Ford, who at the time, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, these were the big boys. These were like the Elon Musks of the time, maybe even bigger than that, honestly. Maybe even bigger than Elon Musk, but that's who it was. It was Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, and they introduced this idea of an energy currency. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about Bitcoin is the energy currency that Henry Ford wanted. We're going to talk about the timeline of what happened, the important numbers in Bitcoin, the importance of a predictable supply, the flaws of the energy currency back in 1921 and why it never could have worked, and why Bitcoin also probably would have failed before 2009. And then, of course, why Bitcoin works today. So this is going to be a fun one because, again, this kind of goes in line with our, if you can understand the difficulty adjustment and the importance of it and why it makes Bitcoin so valuable, then you have a pretty good understanding of Bitcoin. And I think once you have a good understanding of Bitcoin, then you're much less affected by the volatility of it, right? Because when you zoom out, when you look at like the 4-year moving average of Bitcoin, it just goes up. That's all it is. But there's a bunch of volatility in between there. And so when you have a good understanding and a good conviction over Bitcoin, then you're much less affected by those swings. And you can actually take advantage of them. So this information's critical, I would say, to your understanding of Bitcoin. So let's take a look at the timeline here. So 1912, what happened in 1912? The Titanic hit an iceberg. And why is that relevant? Well, the following year, the Federal Reserve was created on Jekyll Island. I don't know if that's how you spelled Jekyll, but it looks right. So I'm not going to get too much into the details here, especially, but if you got some time today, I want you to look up a couple things. Who wasn't on the Titanic? Who was supposed to be on the Titanic, but bailed last second, conveniently bailed last second? And you're going to be surprised because only a year later, the Federal Reserve was created, Jekyll Island, which basically gave a small group of people the license to print money. And the world hasn't been the same since then. The world hasn't been the same since 1913. This is pretty much when everything went to shit. A lot of people think it was 1971, but it was actually well before that. And there's a couple different things that happened along the way. And I guess we should probably put 1971 on here. But Stretch says Rockefeller. It was probably somebody more important than Rockefeller. They have a pretty big bank in the US. You might have heard of them. Jamie Dimon's their current CEO. So I'm a conspiracy theorist myself. And it's funny because I was talking, you know what we're going to do actually? You know what we're going to do? We're going to do something right now. And I don't know what the implications of this will be, but frankly, I don't really give a shit. So we're actually gonna walk through this together. How about that? We don't have to play any guessing games. We're gonna actually get it straight from the horse's mouth. Okay, so let's just take it. Let's ease into this. What year did the Titanic sink? We're gonna have a full conversation here, and we're gonna get the information. So the RMS Titanic sank in 1912. It struck an iceberg April 14th and fully sank on April 15th. Okay, so who was supposed to be? No, let's ask this. Let's ask this one. Was J.P. Morgan on the Titanic, or was he supposed to be? J.P. Morgan was not on the Titanic. He owned the International Mercantile Marine Company, which controlled the White Star Line. I didn't even know that part of it. He owned the International Mercantile Marine Company, which controlled White Star Line and thus the Titanic. But he canceled his planned voyage at the last minute due to illness. Huh. How interesting is that? Due to last minute and stayed at a French resort. Rumors of a booking exist, but there's no solid proof he was ever confirmed. Oh, okay. So why did he bail at the last second then? Conspiracy theories claiming he orchestrated the sinking are widely debunked. Are they? Okay. Interesting. So that's what it was. And they didn't even really try to hide it either. Like there was a bunch of people who were actually opposed. I can tell where this is going. I can tell where this is going already by this last. I don't think we're going to get much out of it from AI here, unfortunately. But there was about 5 or 6 key bankers who were very opposed to a Federal Reserve. Like these people weren't stupid. I know we've had a Federal Reserve now for 100 years, but these guys knew the negative implications of having a centralized bank, a central bank. And so there's 5 or 6 pretty well-known businessmen who were very opposed to the creation of the Federal Reserve. And they were all conveniently on the Titanic that sank. So very influential business leaders in the US and probably from around the world, but mostly the US, I would say, I think. But they were all conveniently on the Titanic. And J.P. Morgan caught the flu right before he was supposed to load. I'm sure there was no coincidence there. I'm sure that was just, I'm sure he had a couple sniffles and he wanted to miss the most important voyage of all time. So that was the timeline there. And again, I'm not going to claim anything here. AI just told us that theory was debunked numerous times. So who am I to say? I'll let you do your own thinking. So that's what happened there. So then a year later, literally a year later, the Federal Reserve was created. Like they didn't even wait and just pretend like, maybe it was a coincidence. They're like, yeah, they're gone. Let's get this thing fired up. Jekyll Island, let's go, boys. We're going to destroy society here. So 1921, that's when Henry Ford dreamt up an energy currency. 1933, the U.S. government, what happened there? The U.S. government started confiscating gold, making it illegal. I think it was 1934, the next year. They started confiscating gold, and then the next year, they made it illegal for for citizens to own gold. Why? And then 1971, of course, that's when we officially, even though it pretty much happened back here when citizens were no longer allowed to own gold. So that actually lasted 40 years where U.S. citizens were not able to own gold. They had to get their system going. So we officially depegged from gold and dollar becomes, what would you call it? Useless? No. Dollar becomes fake, pretty much. That's what happened there. So that was kind of the story there, and that's 1921. It kind of fits right in there. So again, if you think about how fast things happen, like even though it was 10 years between these three things happening, it goes by pretty fast. So again, Titanic hits the iceberg, Federal Reserve, a group of guys get together on Jekyll Island. They decide that they're going to start a central bank. They got a lot of very big backers, some from other parts of the world too. And that's where everything went downhill. And then in 1921, Henry Ford said, you know what, this is bullshit. We can't have this. We can't even have a currency that's backed by gold because it's too centralized. So Henry Ford in 1921 decided that even a currency that's backed by gold is too centralized, too risky. So he said, let's have an energy currency. It'll end wars because governments will not be able to print money to fund the wars. And then, of course, we know what happened from there. And then 1933, the U.S. started confiscating gold. And then, of course, 1940s, that's when World War II happened. And they didn't really need to. That was kind of the timeline there. So 1933, the U.S. government started confiscating gold. They made it illegal for citizens to own gold privately. 1940s, World War II happened. And basically what happened for the next 20, 30 years after the aftermath of World War II is that the U.S. government got caught with their pants down. All the other countries who had the U.S. dollar pegged to gold said, you know what, U.S., we're calling bullshit on you. We think that you printed more money than the gold reserves that you have. We want our gold back. And that's, of course, when 1971, when the U.S. panicked and said, you know what, we're just depegging from gold. We don't want to deal with this anymore. We're getting too much blowback here. So now we're just going to print money without anybody even caring about it. And that's how we've lived for the last 50 years. And I wish I could swear right now, because that is absolutely insane that they were able to keep people in the dark for this long about it. I could say a lot of different things here. Number one, for myself personally, I went through the normal traditional school of high school, college. I was in business. University, I took my accounting and economics. And then, of course, I did my CPA. All about money, all kind of centered around money. And I had no idea what the currencies were backed by. None. So they were very effective in keeping this from people. My dad worked at a bank for 40 years. 40 years. And he didn't know really anything about this kind of stuff. I mean, he had an idea, but he didn't really know the implications of it. Somebody who spent 40 years working at a bank didn't know the full story behind the money. So they did a very good job of keeping this whole thing under wraps. And it's kind of my theory that something happened in 2015-ish that just broke society. I mean, the 2008 collapse was a pretty big one. Then, of course, that same year, coincidentally, the Bitcoin white paper was released. But it was 2015. That's when people really started to get wise on this kind of stuff. I know there was the protests against Wall Street back in 2007, 2008. But everything kind of broke wide open in 2015. I don't know what happened there, but something happened in 2015 where people got pretty wise to it. So anyway, some important numbers that we need to be thinking about today, because this is all going to tie together. So 210,000, that's the blocks between epochs. And I'm going to run some numbers here in just a sec. So that's the blocks between epochs. Again, Bitcoin doesn't work on human time. Bitcoin doesn't care that it's March 10th today. According to Bitcoin, it is about 940,000 and 60? That's the block height. That's the time in Bitcoin. 10 minutes between blocks. So this is the target. And this is why the energy currency works now, because we have the ability to have this target of 10 minutes and the difficulty adjustment that keeps that on track. So that's the main purpose of the difficulty adjustment, is to make sure that there's 10 minutes on average between blocks. And so what do I mean by that? I'll just maybe bring up the mempool here just to give you a visualization of what I'm talking about there. we're frozen. There we go. So these are the blocks, and I'm going to show a couple different things here as we kind of talk through this. But this is the block height. So I just mentioned there 940,000. This is the time in Bitcoin right now. This is the block height, 940,129. And that basically, that's the total number of blocks that have been mined since January 3rd, 2009, since the very first Genesis block. So there's been 940,129 blocks since then. And each block you can actually click into. You can click into and look at for yourself. You can see who mined it. You can see the timestamp of it. You can see the total fees that the miner received. You can see all the transactions that happen inside of this block. So this is the one constant you'll see on the Bitcoin time chain, is this Coinbase transaction. So again, this has nothing to do with the Coinbase company. This is the Coinbase transaction, the newly generated coins. The newly generated coins. So I want you to think about this for a second, because this is an important part to understand, which is that everybody knows that there's 21 million Bitcoin. That's kind of the max supply. And those 21 million Bitcoin were essentially, they've existed since the very first block, January 3rd, 2009. Those Bitcoin have existed. And so what happens is basically every 10 minutes, those Bitcoin are released or emitted to the miners. So over time. So basically, again, the 21 million, even though only 20 million have been mined, those 21 million Bitcoin have always been there. But it's just that every 10 minutes, they're emitted to the network. They're put into circulating supply, essentially. And that's what this Coinbase transaction does, is it sends the coins to the miner, whoever mined the block. In this case was Antpool. So miner Antpool got the newly generated coins here. So that's essentially how new Bitcoin are added to the supply, is every 10 minutes when there's a new block on average, the miner gets these newly generated coins. And then you can scroll down, you can see everything here. So everything's fully transparent on the Bitcoin ledger, essentially. And you can go back and verify this yourself. You can look at every single block here. So I'm actually going to go back to the beginning here, the beginning of Bitcoin, block 0, the Genesis block. So Bitcoin from day one was launched fairly because Satoshi Nakamoto was the only person mining when this block was mined. So he knew it was unfair. And so he mined the first block, which gave him 50 Bitcoin. For the first 210,000 blocks, every miner who mined a block got 50 Bitcoin, 50. And so Satoshi got that first coin. Here's the Coinbase transaction right here, the newly generated coins. And he put a little note in here that said, Chancellor on the brink of second bailout for banks. That's what he inscribed into the network, I guess, or he added as in the op return, I believe. So there it is. That's the very first transaction, or I guess the Coinbase transaction that happened back in 2009. So these coins went to Satoshi. He was the only one mining. And so what he did is he made these coins basically unspendable. So he burned the keys, made them unspendable by anybody, because he knew that he was the only one mining. And if this thing was going to succeed, it had to have been launched fairly, and it was. So the second block here happened, I believe, 6 days later. And again, 50 Bitcoin. That was the subsidy at the time. 50 Bitcoin. And then if we go to, so keep that number in mind there, 50. That's the subsidy here. 50 Bitcoin. Keep this in your mind right now. And then if we go back to the top here and we search block 211,000, the block subsidy for this one, so this will now be epoch number 2. And again, this is going to kind of make sense as we go forward here. But you can see that the subsidy now is 25 Bitcoin. Got cut in half. So every epoch, that subsidy gets cut in half. So it went from 50 to 25. And then if we look at block height of, what would it be? 40, we'll go 450,000. This subsidy should be 12.5. So it got cut in half again. So there it is. The newly generated coins, 13 Bitcoin. So 12.5 was where's the subsidy there? So the fees there were 0.8 of a Bitcoin or 80 million sats. And the subsidy was 12.5 for a total of 13.34 Bitcoin. So 13 Bitcoin back in, when was this? 2017. 13 Bitcoin cost 11,000 USD. That wasn't that long ago. 2017. January 2017. So 9 years ago, you could have got yourself 13 Bitcoin for 11,000 US dollars. So that's less than $1,000 per Bitcoin at the time. And so that's what the miners get. That's the miners' incentives for securing the network, is they get paid the subsidy plus the fees. So the subsidy is the fixed amount. So we talked about 50 and then 25 and then 12.5. That's the block subsidy. The miners also get the fees. So every time you send a Bitcoin transaction on the layer 1 network, the main net, you have to include a transaction fee. And that transaction fee goes to the miner. So that's part of their incentive as well. They get both the subsidy, which is the fixed amount, somewhat fixed, semi-fixed. It changes every 210,000 blocks, plus the transaction fees. So that's their incentive for mining. And if we look at quickly here, the historical, the hash rate here, and the hash rate essentially means that the total amount of energy going into the Bitcoin network here. So you can see that, for 3 months, it's pretty flat. 6 months, pretty flat. We had a big dip here for the winter storm in the US, where a bunch of the miners reallocated their energy from Bitcoin mining to heating homes, keeping people warm. So that's 6 months. If we look at a year, also pretty flat. 2 years, bit of an incline there. But if we look at this over time, this is the total hash rate in the Bitcoin network. So, you see a chart like this and you're thinking pretty positive. So again, this is the total amount of energy going into the Bitcoin network. So when somebody plugs a Bitcoin miner into the wall, this number goes up. When somebody unplugs a miner from the wall, this number goes down. So it's really that simple. I know in Bitcoin, there's a lot of different terminologies and technicalities and all these things, but that's the big picture. That's the average person way to think about it. It's just energy going into the network. So you can see pretty good sign here. And this is going to be pretty important here as well, because when we look at the hash rate here, so you can see that back in 2009, the hash rate of the Bitcoin network was 5 mega hash per second. So again, that's the number of guesses essentially per second, which I'm going to talk about here in just a second. And then we went to gigahertz, or it's not gigahertz, gigahash per second. And then we went to terahash per second. And then we went to, no, not on the screen here. But basically back here, you could mine Bitcoin with a laptop. So if you're watching this show on a laptop, you could have mined Bitcoin with your laptop because there was just no competition. You would have had enough computational power from your laptop to mine Bitcoin. And that's how most people mine Bitcoin back here. But as more and more people got wise to what's going on here, they started mining and the competition went up. So you needed more energy to be able to have a chance at hitting a block. So then you see we went from terahash to petahash per second, and we kind of stayed there for a while. And then in 2019, I think it was, we went into exahash. Sorry, 2017, exahash. And we actually stayed in exahash for a decade. It wasn't until 2025 when we went into the zettahash territory. So you can see there, the hash rate is 1 zettahash now, or it was. What's it today? 1.19 zettahash. March 5th, March 9th. So it's right around 1 zettahash right now. It's kind of been going up and down again. That storm in the US had a pretty big impact on the network because a lot of the miners had to power down so that energy could be used for heating homes. So that's the hash rate. That's the total energy going into the network. And you see that chart. This is my favorite chart in Bitcoin. And it just goes to show you that, things are pretty good. Contrary to what the fiat price will tell you, contrary to what the comments in the YouTube section will tell you, people think it's worth it to contribute their electricity to Bitcoin. And so again, the incentives for people mining Bitcoin are, if they hit a block, they get paid in Bitcoin. So if somebody hit a block today, they would earn themselves, what did the last block receive there for their trouble? They received the total fees of about 4 million sats, 4.9 million sats, and plus the subsidy. So they got 3.174 Bitcoin and pool. So they mined this last block and they got paid 3.174. So that's the incentive for mining, is you get paid in Bitcoin. The newly generated coins there, every block has the newly generated coins. Those go to the miner that mine the block. So that's their incentive. They get paid the subsidy, they get paid the fees, and those are the newly generated Bitcoin. So that's what miners have to figure out. They have to figure out, based on how much money I'm spending on electricity here, is it worth it for me to mine with the chance that I hit a block and get paid in Bitcoin? So it's a gamble. It's completely random. There's miners out there who have been contributing to the network, paying for electricity to mine Bitcoin, and some of them never hit a block. So that's the risk that you run, is you might never hit a block. But of course, when you think about it this way, the more energy you have going to the network, the greater odds you have. So let's make sure we understand that part of it, because that's a pretty important part here before we go any further. So basically what miners are doing, very big picture here, miners are guessing. That's what the miners do. The miners have a very specific job, is to produce hashes and try to guess the block equation. So miners are trying to guess the block equation. That's their sole purpose. They have these things in them called ASICs, which are very specialized chips that have one job: to try or to produce hashes that try to guess the block equation. And if a miner guesses the block equation, they get to mine the block. And so they don't just get paid, but another important component to this too is that they don't just get paid, they get to decide, and this is important if you think about like the big picture implications of this, they get to decide which transactions go into the next block. So that's pretty important. If you play this out a lot of years, and let's say that you had a government that had a lot of hash power and they were hitting a lot of blocks, and they were then deciding which transactions got put into the block. Or if there was another government mining Bitcoin and they were hitting a lot of blocks and they refused to put another government's transactions into their block, you could see the dynamics of this and why it's so important for governments and entities around the world to secure this hash power. Because if Bitcoin ends up being a global reserve currency, it's the miners who actually decide which transactions go into the next block. So they design what's called a block template and choose which transactions go into the block. And so the incentive here is the more computational power you have, the more guesses. We're just calling them guesses because that's pretty much what they are. These ASICs, these miners, basically that's their only job is to guess. And the more computational power you have, the more guesses you can make. And of course, the implications of that would be the more guesses you can make, the higher your odds of hitting a block. I should say mining a block. So that's the incentives there. If you want the best chance of hitting a block and getting paid, but also getting to decide which transactions go into that block, you want to have more odds. You want to have more guesses. And so what do? You get more computational power. You get better miners. You get more efficient miners. You get more miners, and you get more hash power. And so that's why Bitcoin is an energy currency, is because it takes physical energy, whether it's hydropower, solar power, nuclear power. It takes energy from the physical world and it brings it into the digital world. And there's nothing else exists on the internet that actually ties to the physical world other than Bitcoin. That's why altcoins are worthless. That's why most information you see online is worthless, because it's easy to copy and paste. It's easy to recreate and duplicate and just create something out of nothing. That's what the fiat dollar is too, but that's also why most cryptos have no real value, because they don't have any cost to produce. Bitcoin takes physical energy, brings it into the digital realm, and it costs money. It costs energy to create a Bitcoin, or not create a Bitcoin, but to mine a Bitcoin, I should say. All the Bitcoin have already been created. All 21 million Bitcoin already exist. It's just that over the next 120 years, those Bitcoin are going to be paid out to the miners and put it into supply, essentially, based on who's mining and who hits the blocks and who gets to decide which transactions go into that block. So if we think about it this way too, like this is a good way to think about it. So if you look at the mempool here, this is a ledger of all the Bitcoin transactions here. And you can see the last block was 2 minutes ago by F2 pool. And so if you were to send a Bitcoin transaction right now, not on Lightning, not on your exchange, not just buying Bitcoin, but if you were to actually get my Bitcoin address and send me a Bitcoin transaction, the first place it goes is right over here to the mempool. So this little dotted line here, this is essentially when it goes from the mempool into a block. And so if I was sending a Bitcoin transaction right now, let's say that I was sending it to Sedge. So if I want to send Bitcoin to Sedge right now, I would get his address, I'd set my fee, and I'd want to set my fee to be at least like 2 sats per VByte right now. Because again, miners get to decide which transactions get put into the block. And so from a economic perspective, miners usually choose the transactions that have the highest fees, right? They want to maximize their revenue. It makes sense. So I would set my fee to be higher here. So then whoever mined the next block, they would see my transaction, they would see my fee that I'm paying, and they would include my transaction in the next block. So essentially, this is the next block to be mined here. And you send a Bitcoin transaction, it goes into the mempool first. And it stays there until a miner puts it into a block. So again, think about the game theory there, where if you had a country that had a significant amount of hash power and they were able to decide which transactions get put into a block and which ones don't, you could see why it's important to have hash power, to have the ability to put your transaction into a block. Because once it crosses this line here, it's there forever. Well, pretty much. I mean, there are certain things that could happen, I guess, that have happened. But pretty much as soon as your transaction crosses this line and gets put into a block, it's going to be there forever. And why is that? Just quickly, why is that? And you probably heard that Bitcoin's immutable. You've probably heard somebody say Bitcoin's immutable, because once your transaction goes from the mempool and gets put into a block here, the new ledger, the new chain of blocks is updated, and that gets sent out to everybody in the network who's running a Bitcoin node. And so that gets broadcast to 25, 30, 35,000 people around the world who all now have a copy of this updated ledger with your transaction in it. And then, of course, another block comes, and then it's even further into the chain, even harder to make a change to. So that's why Bitcoin's immutable, because once it gets put into a block, it's there forever. That gets sent out to everybody running a node. And anybody who's running a node, basically they're just keeping a copy of all the transactions that have ever happened in Bitcoin. That's really what it is. And you can verify that your transaction is legitimate if you run your own node, because you get an updated copy of the ledger approximately every 10 minutes, every time there's a new block. Or I guess even sooner than that, every time there's a new transaction put into the mempool, depending on what your mempool policy is. But this ledger, as soon as it crosses this line here, that gets sent out and broadcast to the whole network. So your transaction's in there. Okay, so if we go back to the spreadsheet here, the difficulty adjustment. So the difficulty is adjusted. And again, I'm kind of every 2016 block. So again, if we think about it this way, I'm going to make more space here. So if we think about the 210,000 blocks between epochs, so let's go like this, just quickly to show what this means. So epoch 1, 210,000 blocks, and the block subsidy was 50. So in the first epoch, the first 210,000 blocks, there was 10.5 million Bitcoin mined. 10.5 million Bitcoin mined. So if we go like this, 420,000, and then this should be 630. Okay, and then this is 50. So every epoch here, every 210,000 blocks, the subsidy, the payment to the miners, it gets cut in half. And that's what you probably heard the phrase Bitcoin halving before. That's what happens. So again, Bitcoin's not based on like every 4 years or every certain amount of months. It's based on the block height. So every 210,000 blocks. And this is where we are right now. We're in epoch number 5. And so you can see here, pretty quick math will tell us where we are right now. So after the first 4 epochs, a total of what? How come I can't see that? Equals sum of these ones. That's not right. Why'd that not work? That's not right either. Why is that wrong? Hold on. What's off with this? This should be half of this. Oh, that's why. Yeah, okay. It's taking the wrong number here. That's okay. We'll figure it out here. So we got 210. That's what it should be. Times 25. So you can see that in the first 2 epochs here, 75% of the total supply was mined. In the first 2 epochs here, think about that. In the first 2 epochs here, 75% of the Bitcoin had been mined. And it's kind of cool that it actually lines up with the subsidy here. So 50 and 25, that's 75, right? And so then after the third epoch, it was actually 87.5. You can kind of do that math quickly there. 87.5. And then I don't know. I wish I could see this. I wish this doc thing would get out of my life. I can't see it. There we go. So what do we have here? 50, 25. So at the end of epoch number 5, which should be approximately May 2028, you can see that there will be 96.875 of the total Bitcoin mined. 96.875. So if we just go like this, because Michael Saylor said that basically in 2035, that's when 99% of the Bitcoin network will have been mined. So I think that'll be, we'll go like this. No. So that'll be at about 1.68 million block height. And if we keep cutting this in half, so look at that. In epoch number 8, the block rewards are going to go to 39 million sats per block. So they started at 50. Back in 2009, a miner got a block. They got 50 Bitcoin. In epoch number 8, which will be, let's put some years here. So this was 2009. This is 2012. This is 2016. This is 2020. This is 2024. Actually, no, I got to move these up. 2028, epoch number 6 begins. 2032, 2036, 2040. So I believe by the year 2040 or 2036, there'll be less than 1 Bitcoin every block. And so if we look at this, that's 99.6%. I don't know if you can see that down there very well, but that's 99.6. Oh, wow. 99.6% of the network will have been mined, of the Bitcoin will have been mined by 2040. 99.6. So why does this matter? Like, why are we talking about this today? It matters because when Henry Ford thought of this idea, I was going to do the epochs here. We can get rid of this now. So when Henry Ford had this idea in 1921, why wouldn't this have worked? I mean, there's a couple reasons for it, but I think there's 2 main ones here. And so again, Henry Ford's idea was to be able to capture an energy currency, use electricity to create a new currency, which is pretty much what Bitcoin is. But the problem in 1921 is they didn't have the internet. And so they had no ability to store or transfer essentially electricity, because that's what it was. The currency, his idea was a currency that was backed by electricity. So in 1921, they didn't really have the ability to store or transfer electricity as a currency. They had the ability to measure it, but they didn't really have the ability to store and transfer it like we do with Bitcoin now. So there was a lot of different things in the last 100 years that evolved into Bitcoin, but it was all based on this concept of an energy currency from Henry Ford in 1921. So the other part of it too, and this is where the difficulty adjustment comes in, is that there was no ability to fix the supply, right? Because think about this. Think about where we are today, 2026, 100 years after Henry Ford thought of this idea. The technological advances. So if you had a currency that was truly backed by energy, what would happen there? As technology improved, our ability to harness and produce energy would also increase with it. And so therefore, as technology constantly gets better, we would be constantly increasing the supply of Bitcoin, or of units, I should say, not Bitcoin, but of units. Right? So as technology improves, we can create more energy. And that's what we're seeing now. We have so many different energy sources now. But the problem with that is that we would also be able to create infinite units of money, units of currency. So those were the 2 problems. Is that there's no ability to store or transfer electricity as a currency, and there's no ability to fix the supply. And so what happened here with Bitcoin and why Bitcoin works now, I'll maybe hold on to that idea for a second. So that's why it didn't work in 1921. Plus, I'm sure there was probably misunderstanding of why, a misunderstanding of why it was needed. Why not just trust the banks? Federal Reserve's got our back. They seem like good people. They wear suits. Understanding of why it was important and how it could work. So again, I keep going back to this, but just think about that. Back in 1921, Henry Ford had enough foresight and vision to see that even gold because gold, all the money was backed by gold at this point in history. 1921, the currency was still fully backed by gold. And even Henry Ford said, this isn't enough because gold centralizes. With gold, you have to trust somebody. That's a problem. And so he wanted this energy currency. And so I'm just going to quickly go through this because I think this is kind of fun to think about, but not overly important. But why would Bitcoin have failed before 2009? So number one, we had dial-up, right? So dial-up would not allow Bitcoin to be always on. Bitcoin needs to be always on. And back before 2009, we had dial-up. I don't know who remembers that around here, but it wasn't always on. If you got a phone call, your connection would cut off. And so it wasn't reliable. 2 is the latency. Again, because it was much slower back then. This is an important one. So let me put this in bold actually. So for a decentralized currency to work, every computer in the network needs to agree on which transaction came first. Every computer in the network needs to agree which transaction came first, right? Because there's no centralized authority in Bitcoin. There's nobody that says, hey, this block actually came first or this transaction came first. Everybody has to be on the same page. Information has to be spread and dispersed timely, in a timely manner, so the network can stay intact. And that's actually why the 10-minute block time, if we go back to this, that's why this is so important. The 10 minutes between blocks, that's the target. Because then the network can all agree. The network can come to consensus that says this block came before this one, this transaction came before this one, because everybody can agree on it. There's 10 minutes for this to travel around the world and say, yep, that block's valid, next one. On average, it's not every 10 minutes, but on average. And so the latency was a big one. And we wouldn't have had the ability to do that before 2009. Storage was another one. 4 gigabytes was considered large back then. And so anybody who knows Bitcoin knows that you need a sufficient amount of storage. I believe it's like 700 gigabytes today to run a full node. Because again, when you're running a node, what are you doing? You're just keeping a copy of the ledger. That's all it is. You have your own copy of the 940,000 blocks and all the transactions that have ever happened. So that, of course, is data. So you need sufficient storage. And so it couldn't have been decentralized enough because storage was so expensive back then that people wouldn't have been able to run their own nodes. And then the last one here is CPU power. So the hash rate was so low, and this is important because the hash rate was so low, the computers were like, they were much different back then. It took a lot longer. They didn't have the same kind of processing and computational power as we have today. So hash rate was so low that powerful university or government computer, computer could have essentially hijacked the network, right? Because everybody had computers at home, I think, at this point before 2009. Not everybody, but a lot of people did. But they were much different. And universities and governments had more powerful computers. And so there was a bigger variance there between the home computer and some of these really powerful university/government computers. And so because of that, Bitcoin could have been captured because there was just such a large variance there between home computers and powerful ones that it could have been hijacked. So, and of course, the other thing too is that we had the 2008 financial crash. And then 2008, we also had the Bitcoin white paper. And then 2009, we had the first Bitcoin block mined, the Genesis block. And it was funny because Satoshi actually made reference to the financial crash in the very first block. We saw that today. The chancellor on the brink of second bailouts. So Satoshi basically said, hey, you guys clearly, this system's screwed. Here's something new for you to try out. A network, a currency that cannot be controlled, cannot be centralized, cannot be stopped, cannot be created out of thin air like your currency is. It requires proof of work. Again, taking physical energy and bringing it into the network through mining. So that's why Bitcoin works. And again, if we think about it this way, so if we go back to the main flaw here, the main flaw of the energy currency idea back in 1921 is that there's no ability to fix the supply. And so what the difficulty adjustment does, so why Bitcoin works now, well, you basically look at all these. You say, okay, well, we got quicker internet and we can basically leave Bitcoin. It needs to always be on, and we can do that now. The latency, every computer in the network is fast enough now, we can all agree within 10 minutes that this block is valid and it came before this one. Storage, I mean, you can buy 2 terabytes worth of storage now for a couple $100. So it's gotten a lot cheaper, which means that average people can run their own nodes and verify transactions and support the network and have a vote in what direction the network goes to. And then computational power. So there's different efficiencies, there's different powers or different computational power, but it's not a huge variance. And different companies have different abilities and miners and all this kind of stuff, but it's much more decentralized now. There's no supercomputer that could essentially come onto the Bitcoin network now and get all of the blocks and decide which transactions go into the blocks. So Bitcoin checks all these boxes now. But the main reason is the difficulty adjustment. And why that is, why the difficulty adjustment is important here is because as technology improves, we can create more energy. So think about that. As technology improves, we have the ability to create more energy. And think about in 10 years from now, how much different energy sources we're going to be able to utilize because of technology. But because of the difficulty adjustment, we cannot create infinite units of currency because it's on the difficulty adjustment keeps the blocks coming in every 10 minutes. And so when we look out in the future and we say, okay, in 2100, the year 2100, there's going to be this much supply. It's because we can realistically and reliably count on the blocks coming in every 10 minutes because of this difficulty adjustment that happens every 2016 blocks. And so what that means is, like, if there's a bunch of power that comes onto the network and they're winning all the blocks because they have significantly more hash power, more guesses, better odds, they're winning a bunch of blocks and they're deciding which transactions get put into a block. In 2016 blocks, that could go on for a little while, but every 2016 blocks, the difficulty adjustment goes up or down. So if there was a bunch of energy coming onto the network, the difficulty adjustment would crank up and make it very difficult for that miner who had a bunch of energy. They can't get those blocks any sooner because the difficulty adjustment cranks up. So the target, the 10 minutes there, is incredibly important because of that. Because we have a reliable and predictable supply schedule. And it's fixed. It's fixed. And that was the big difference between the Henry Ford's idea, is that you couldn't fix it, right? So back then, if you had an energy currency, the more energy that you created, the more units that you'd have. So if you had a really powerful technology that had a lot of energy, you could essentially just create a bunch of units for yourself. But because of the difficulty adjustment, that doesn't happen. It kind of self-regulates the Bitcoin network. So I know that's a lot to I know that's a lot. I know. And a couple things I'll say here before we wrap up, because I'm almost at an hour here for the lesson. Number one, just be patient with yourself. You know, some of these concepts are fairly hard to understand. It probably took me 2 or 3 or 4 years, and I'm not even claiming that I fully understand it. So if you're somebody who just got into Bitcoin in like 2025 or 2024, like just take it easy. Like it's a lot to wrap your head around here, mostly because it's just so different than the system that we have. And so be patient with yourself. It takes time. And I would consider rewatching this. Rewatch this, take notes, join the Bitcoin school. Because I talk about these kind of topics every single day. There's a new video on the Bitcoin school. And these are the kind of things I talk about in kind of smaller chunks, though. So it's like 10 or 15 or 20 minutes, much more digestible and consistent. So the videos are posted every day, different Bitcoin topics, 15 or 20 minutes long. And there's a lot of repetition. And that's the key to learning is repetition and different touch points, looking at it through a different angle, because some things hit differently with different people based on your experience and your knowledge that you have. So again, I'm going to tell you this. This is the last, well, maybe not the last time, but join Bitcoin School, which is school.com. You can also join as a member on YouTube and get access to the videos. But I would suggest joining the school before March 15th. And whoever joins before then is going to be rewarded, I guess you'll say. Because you're going to have access to all the courses I've ever done, plus the Bitcoin School, everything. All exclusive, all-inclusive access. And I'm going to change the tiers on March 15th. So it's going to cost more to get what you get today. So in the next 5 days, I guess, I might leave this till Saturday or Sunday, just so that whoever's watching the replay can see this. But again, you got a supportive community and network. And I don't want you to underestimate how powerful a network's going to be in the future here. If Bitcoin succeeds, that means we're going to be taking out a lot of middlemen. And when you don't have middlemen to steal from you and essentially keep both sides honest, you have to rely on each other. And so it's important to have a network. It's important to have a reputation and proof of work. That's what it is. So don't wait a couple of years till you're more comfortable and everything and you think you can afford it. Do it today, because this is absolutely vital. Your reputation in the future in this new cyber economy is critical. I'm telling you. And I see signs of this every day. The people who started building their network, who've been putting in the work, are getting rewarded every day and are going to be rewarded much more in the future. So that's it. I said last week, I think it was episode number 57 and 60. If you watch those 2 episodes alone, you'd actually pay for your membership, basically. And I shared a video yesterday talking about something too that would actually, you could utilize the network, all the information that's in there, and actually start earning a side hustle, a side income, strictly by being a member of school. So again, it's going to change. We're going to make some changes March 15th in 5 days from now. So I would suggest if you do want to join, get there before then. And that's it. That's pretty much what I got for you today. So again, that was a long one, but there's a lot to get through there. But anyways, let's bring this down. Bitcoin is beautiful. It really is. Like it's beyond. That's why I'm convinced that it was either aliens or a time traveler that created Bitcoin, just because it's so perfectly designed. Not just like the math behind it or the proof of work, but the actual human psychology and just everything that goes into it is just perfectly designed. And I really don't think that a human being is capable of designing this. So anyways, I guess I'm still on the show here. So for everybody watching on Saturday, the replay, hope you have a great day. We're going to keep going here for the live show. But yeah, consider joining. I guess we'll close things off tomorrow officially. We'll change the tiers if you're watching this on Saturday. So get in there. I guarantee, and I forgot to mention this, but I'll bring it up here quickly because this is important. I want everybody to be aware of this. You have 100% guarantee by Jor, which means that in a month or 2 months or a year from now, you say, you know what, Jor, I paid you. I feel like I didn't get enough value from it. I want a refund. I will give you 100% back in Bitcoin. That's how confident I am that you're going to get way more value than you pay for by being a part of this community. 100%, no questions asked. At any point, you email me and say, not worth it, not worth my time or money, I want a refund. 100%. I'll even pay you in Bitcoin. You paid in fiat, I'll pay you in Bitcoin. There's just so much in there. There's so much information in there, so much information that you really need to know, and so many great people that are part of that, supporting you and teaching each other and helping each other. And we're gonna have some big things coming in this community this year. And I want you to get in there before the 15th to have full access to it for a very, very reasonable price. So everybody watching the replay, I hope you have a great day today, and we'll talk to you on the next one. Bye-bye. And for everybody else, we're going to keep going here for a couple minutes. I actually got another live stream in an hour, 2 hours from now with Robin and the boys. So I got to hit the road here right away, but I do want to get through a couple comments. I see we got a couple trolls in the chat. That's as expected. Oh, yeah, Henry Ford. Talk to you soon. Pretty cool, though. Pretty cool everything there. Okay. So Zapstream, we had a decent crew over there today. Mark says, late to the show, just got back from the chiropractor, monthly maintenance. And he sent $16.50. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. Welcome to the show today. It was a long one. Holy man. That was, I might need a nap after that one. David T is also here. Zap 420 said, good morning. Thank you, David T. And we got about 10 zaps from Scotty Boy here, 99 sats each. Thank you, Scotty. All right, there's Texas. Nice. The Jeffrey Epstein coin. Tell us you know nothing about Bitcoin without telling us you know nothing about Bitcoin. Okay, what did I miss here? I did have a couple questions I think I wanted to get to. But I gotta grab something here. So I'm gonna be back in like 1 second. We'll probably do this for another 15 or 20 seconds or 20 minutes. But I gotta go do something right now quickly. So let me put on a quick video here. One of our favorite videos. Ready? Here we go. What a video. What a video there. That was from our guy, Another Frog. I don't know if he's in the chat or not today. But, I see a couple questions over here from Rumble. Captain 173 said, what would you consider a sizable amount? So kind of the threshold that I usually use. I just want to make sure that my microphone's still back. Yeah, we're good. You guys can hear me, right? What was I saying there? Oh yeah, Captain 173. That's a good question. So let me bring this up here real quick. This is kind of my threshold that I have for most people. It's really dependent. Like, I mean, it really depends on your situation, like what kind of allocation you have to Bitcoin. Like if you're more, if you got like 80-90% of your wealth in Bitcoin, then, this answer might be a little bit different. But usually what I tell people is like 1 to 5 million sats, or I guess 0 to 5 million sats, up to 5 million sats. You're probably just better off leaving it on like an exchange or something like an Aqua wallet if you do want to hold your own keys. Aqua wallet or a Bull Bitcoin wallet. And then I'd say 5 to 50 million sats, which is 0.05 to 0.5 of a Bitcoin. I'd recommend a hardware device with a passphrase. I kind of had an idea where I thought people should have a hardware wallet first and then add a passphrase later, but I think it actually should be done at the same time. I've kind of changed my opinion on that a little bit. And then if you got 50 million or more, that's when you want to start looking into a multi-sig. And you want to eventually get to a point where you have your backups encrypted in a multi-sig. That's kind of like the highest level of Bitcoin security you have. And ideally here, you want to have zero trace of Bitcoin at your house. And not at your house. And I talked about the main purpose of Bitcoin School being to have everybody going through it into a multi-sig by the end of it. But this is also a big part of it. This might even be more important than that, is making sure that you don't have any Bitcoin at your house. And that includes the hardware devices. That includes your recovery phrase for your wallet. That includes everything. Probably the only thing that you should have is the Bitcoin you have on your phone. If you have like an Aqua wallet or a hot wallet. So you want to geographically disperse. You want two things here. You want them geographically dispersed keys, private keys. And you want no single point of failure. And that's why I recommend people have a passphrase here. So I'm guessing most people going through the Bitcoin School course are going to be probably around here, between 5 and 50 million sats. That's kind of like who it's made for. I would say if you have more than 50 million sats or more than half a Bitcoin, you should try to expedite that a little bit. You should get that into a multi-sig as soon as you can. But if you'd rather take it slow, then the Bitcoin School is going to be for you too. But this is pretty much what the Bitcoin School course is going to teach you. It's going to teach you to geographically disperse your private keys, both the device and the keys, the backups, and remove the single point of failure from your life. So if something happened, a fire, a break-in, anything, you would still have access to your Bitcoin. And then plus you should have an inheritance plan to pass on your Bitcoin. So that's kind of like the Bitcoin School course. This is kind of what you're going to have. You want to have zero trace of Bitcoin, geographically dispersed keys, no single point of failure, and you want to have an inheritance plan in place to make sure that your heirs, your kids and their kids will be able to recover your Bitcoin. So that's what we're going to spend the next, 9.5 months doing. So that's kind of my threshold. that I use for, again, it's tough to say because everybody's in a different situation. But anyways, there was a question back here. So again, big shout out to Jen for this. This really helps the channel here. Donations like this. So thank you, Jen. Marco giving some kind words, which is as good as money, about the community in the Bitcoin school. And then I thought I had a starred question up here, right here. I don't know if crypto professor's here or not still anymore. But here's the question. Reducing employee count, no increase in goods or services, but growing bottom line exponentially. Do we want this business model to catch on? Well, number one, I would say that it doesn't really matter what we want. Like, I think it's important to understand that as we go forward here into the future, is that it doesn't really matter what we want. And there's going to be people hanging on as hard as they can to the old system, but it doesn't matter. Eventually they're going to break free of it. And so the second part of that too is that if you understand this, if you subscribe to this theory here that we're going to get rid of employees and the bottom line is going to go up, humans are going to have a lot more free time essentially. You have to consider the fact that as technology not only replaces humans, but that technology is also going to be able to make goods and services exponentially quicker and cheaper. Everything. There's nothing that's immune to that, except one thing, which is Bitcoin. And that's what we spent an hour talking about, why that's the case. Bitcoin is the only thing that no matter how much technology improves and increases, we cannot shortcut the Bitcoin supply schedule because of the difficulty adjustment. And so if you agree with this, if you subscribe to this theory, which I do, I think this is absolutely going to play out over the next couple of decades, then you need to focus on one thing. And that is whatever Bitcoin you have today, you have that Bitcoin safe and you can pass that Bitcoin on to your family. And so I posted a video about it the other day, but this is kind of what it boils down to, is that, again, I subscribe to that theory. So you need to focus on securing your Bitcoin. That's your main focus. Again, because if that plays out in a world with infinite products and services and gadgets and things that can be made very quickly and very cheaply, Bitcoin's the only one that has actual value in that world. Because again, you cannot shortcut Bitcoin. We can't create more Bitcoin. And once you have that unlock in your head, I think it changes the way you look at Bitcoin. And so whatever sats you have today, you might see it's only worth a couple $1,000, but that's in this system that we're in right now. The system that we're moving to, that's going to be 100, 1,000 times more valuable because it's the only thing that's real in that world. It's the only thing that no matter how much technology improves, we can't make more Bitcoin any faster. So secure your Bitcoin, have an inheritance plan in place, and do what you love. I think that's the most important one, is do what you love. Do what you love and make sure you have enough to cover your bills. That's pretty much it. If you're watching this video in 2026, pretty much all you need to focus on is securing the Bitcoin you have, making sure your family can get it if something were to unexpectedly happen to you, and just do enough to pay your bills. You don't necessarily need that much more Bitcoin. You just have to protect what you have, because the Bitcoin that you have today is worth infinitely more than you see it right now. So you just want to make sure that the Bitcoin balance only goes up. And so that's why you want to make sure you have enough to cover your bills so you don't have to sell your Bitcoin. But that's it. That's all you have to focus on. And there's going to be enough people, there's going to be enough jobs and income earning abilities for the people who actually understand it and are willing to put in the work. And you're going to be so incredibly rewarded for that in the future if you can do these things. That's it. This is your main focus for the next decade here. It's all you have to think about. And of course, side note, have fun, because life is incredibly short. So it's a good question, but if That's what Bitcoin's for. That's why we're in Bitcoin, is because Bitcoin is immune from that. Bitcoin's immune from technological advances. And the quantum is just FUD for now. Okay, what else do we got here? What other questions we have? I got an itchy nose. What does itchy nose mean? I'm going to be rich? Okay, so we had a guess of Rockefeller. Or did an iceberg hit the Titanic? Yeah. Or was it like the thing that happened in 2001 in New York City, where there was just explosions going off everywhere? Rockefeller, Tesla, Praetorian got it. JP Morgan. JP Morgan was the correct answer. Don't forget 2012. What happened in 2012, Rich? What happened in 2012? Coney? Remember Coney? Coney 2012? Joe going full backpacker. What does that mean? What was I doing? Yeah, convenient. It was pretty convenient. Tell the AI to go full conspiracy theorist. I don't know if Perplexity does that. I think Grok does. Stanley got the correct answer. Yeah, Edward says conspiracy theorists have been proven right over and over and over and over and over and over again. Running out of conspiracy theories. Scotty said it was no more than 5. I think it was actually 10 ounces that citizens were allowed to hold. I think it was 10. It could have been 5 or 10, but yeah. Only conspiracy until proven true. Yeah, I mean, I think the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth is about 6 months. Hey, look at that. Another frog is actually over in the Rumble chat today. That's the video we watched there. He's in the chat. Good morning, another frog. Thanks for a great video there. Matt FRL. Oh, sorry, Stretch. Stretch, I just started solo mining. Lottery ticket every 10 minutes. Yep. Those 50 Bitcoin from block 0 were never added to the spendable UTXO set, therefore locked by the protocol. So totally fair launch from day one. Sandy Solo says, when altcoin season? Don't hold your breath on that. Jen says, thought about mining from the garage since its electricity isn't on my bill. Could only do it during the winter, though. Yeah, you wouldn't want to do that in the summer. Yeah, I mean, if you're not paying for electricity, whoever's paying for it might have some questions, though. That's the only thing. You might have some answering to do. Difficulty adjusts every 2016 blocks. Yes. Feeling good today. Aussie expat. Good to see you, my friend. Me too. Feeling good, feeling fine. Oh, yeah, I want to make sure I didn't miss any zaps here. Tuesdays are usually pretty slow in the zap department, aside from a couple people. But we're talking to the masses here. We're trying to get people educated on the coin. We got Mark's there and Chuck. Chuck zapped 111 and said, got here for the end at least. Yeah, we're kind of wrapping up here. I'd say we got about 5 more minutes, maybe. People, BYC isn't Bitcoin. Go look at what BSV, see how much it's up. I mean, just look at this. Look at this comment. Do you think that you would want to align yourself with anybody who speaks and types like this? I don't know. I don't think so. So yes, we had some dipshits in the chat today. Latency is underestimated in how blocks are distributed quickly and can start working on the next block. 100%. 100%. Everybody's got to be on the same page. Everybody's got to be in consensus before the next block comes. So latency was a big one, and that's why Bitcoin couldn't have been before 2000. Well, I mean, I don't know the exact date when that came into play, but it was around 2009. The world wasn't ready for Bitcoin before 2009. BTC is not Bitcoin. Bye. Okay. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for such great contributions to the chat this morning. Storage needs to be pretty quick too, unfortunately. Ricky Ricardo says, in Bitcoin we trust. Bitcoin is beautiful, quite literally perfect money. I think it's the closest thing we'll ever have. And that's why it's so important we get it right. Jen says, have a great day. Maintenance guys here. My dishwasher flooded my kitchen again. What the heck? How does that happen? You got to clean the dishes off, Jen, before you put them in there. You're clogging it up. You're clogging. Thiago. Aussie Expat says this video is epic. Yeah, that was another frog that made that video. You might have noticed a familiar face in that video. Sailors shouldn't be on a life raft. Well, the life raft should start hovering with anti-gravity tech. $1 million Bitcoin brings it in parity with gold. Actually, it's about $2 million now. I think if Bitcoin and gold were fairly valued in terms of market cap, based on their market cap, Bitcoin would be at about $2 million today. Scotty says we're up a bit today. Okay, let's do our buy. Let's do our buy because I got to get ready for this next live stream here. Tuesday's a heavy day of streaming. We're streaming everything here today. Okay, 88 lessons. Let's get this up. VD Berg. Ooh, that's a new logo. Says, hey, George, Raphael from the Maple School. Nice to catch you live. Nice to see you, Raphael. Nice to see you, my friend. Okay, so here's our smash. This is what we do every single day. And I'm going to put a little banner up on the stage here for people, just in case you're unaware. But we actually do a live show every morning, not just Tuesdays. We do a live stream every morning there. So that's scrolling across the screen right now. So what is it today? I don't think we even bought Bitcoin last week. We were in so much of a panic. March 10th. So Scotty says we're up, which means what? $8. Okay, so if you're buying Bitcoin today, if you want to be part of our smash buy here, throw it in the chat how much you spent and how much you got. It's the best part of the show here. So let's take a look at this. We'll give a little shake first. Get some free sats. And let's buy some Biddy. $8 today gets us 8123. 8,123 sats for $8. The deal of a lifetime, we call that. The deal of a lifetime. So 88123. And that's what we do on the show every day. We buy Bitcoin every single day. But here's the thing. It does not matter how much you buy. Doesn't matter. Could be 50 cents worth every day. The only thing that matters is that you buy. And we do it together. So it's become a ritual here. And we're stacking sats, man, because again, the thesis here is that one day eventually, one sat will have the purchasing power of $1. So in other words, we just traded $8 today for $8,100 in the future. We traded 8 units of trash, 8 units of garbage, 8 units of illusion for 8,100 units of the hardest, scarcest, most finite units we've ever seen. 8 units of the worst money in history for 8,100 units of the best money in history. Pretty good trade. And when you're making that trade every day, you're going to win. And we are winning, regardless of what the fiat price tells us it's worth. We know better. Where did the Bitcoin talks get posted? I only saw one on your channel. Which one? The Bitcoin talks. What does that mean? Oh, yeah, with the boys, the mastermind. So last week I just put it on Nostr and Rumble because I figured Nostr and Rumble would want to watch too. So I didn't get to stream it on my YouTube channel, if that's what you mean. So you'd be able to watch it on like Robin's channel, Forrest's channel, Brandon's channel. Rajat, I think, is back today. And VD Raphael got 169K sats for €100. Wow. That's freaking bananas. 100 euros for 169,000 sats. We're going to look back on these days and say, damn. But again, if you subscribe to this theory, and this is kind of my overlying theory here, is it like if you subscribe to this theory, you need to pay a little bit less attention to like getting more sats and what the price of those sats is, and more attention to protecting the sats that you have. Because I guarantee you, if you're watching this video right now, live or later, you have more than enough Bitcoin for your family. More than enough. You might not be able to retire in 2 years and do nothing for the rest of your life and live on Bitcoin. But the Bitcoin that you have today is going to be more than enough for your family. I don't care who it is. Whoever's watching this right now, I know that you have enough Bitcoin for your family. So the only thing that you need to do is focus on protecting that Bitcoin. We got 420 again. I don't know who sent that. 420 again. David T. Should have known. Great number there, 420. So that's it. I think that's what I got for you today. I'm going to be back on an hour and a half here, so I should rest up my voice a little bit. It is still freaking, hasn't changed. 2 hours of this. Woohoo, I might even be getting out the snowblower by the looks of it today. So that's what I got for you today. Oh, Zapstream just went down. Said there's an issue on Cloudflare. Oh, no. Okay. So big shout out again to a couple people today. Big shout out to Jen. Again, we got no sponsors on this channel. So if you don't have the ability to support, again, if you agree with what we're doing here, if you get any sort of value from me, if you've learned anything from me and you want to send some value back, you can do it in the form of super chat. You can join as a member on the channel and get all the Bitcoin School videos. You can send to our rescue dog fund here. A lot of ways to do it. So big shout out to Jen today. Big shout out to Sats and Sunsets. And a couple big ones on the Zap stream too. We had Duncan with a big one and Josh with a big one. So yes, if you do want to support, those are the ways to do it. Easiest one's probably just joining YouTube as a member. And you get a little bit more. You get something back too. You get every video, every day. I come up with a new video that's shared on YouTube for the private members. So last thing I want to share here before we go, because I made a point of talking about this a couple times, but I just want to be crystal clear here. So March 15th, that's kind of your last opportunity to join before things change on the school here. So I'm going to change the tiers. I'm going to change the price. Bitcoin School officially starts March 15th. And you get access to all these videos the day you join, assuming you join before March 15th. If you join after that, it's going to look a little bit different. But you got all these videos here from this year, every single day, new video. They're all about 10 minutes long, talking about a bunch of different things. What do you want? There's a couple good ones here, talking about your Bitcoin goal, figuring out how much you need for your Bitcoin. Bunch of things here. So that's the school. And you get access to all this stuff, all the resources here. I share videos in different categories that you can watch. So if you're a content lover, you got the 21-day course, the multi-generational wealth course, the cold card queue masterclass, which walks you through exactly how to set up a cold card and use a passphrase with it. You got the 365 days of Bitcoin. I did a video every single day in 2025, and you get them all here. Looks like a hostage video there. But for a laughable rate of $21 a month, and again, that's going to go up next week, or you're going to have less access to things with the same amount of money. So if you are somebody looking to join here, that's and there's going to be plenty of opportunities too, being part of this community, to earn money in the future. And actually, not the day you start, you can start earning money here. So let me put this on, where's the Zap stream here? I'll share this with Zap stream. I know there's a lot of people already in there, but I know there's also some that aren't. So if you're watching this video later, I'll also have all these links plus more maybe in the pinned comments, and that's it. So we got a couple buys here. Scotty spent 11,000 yen for 100,000 sats, and Praetorian got 65,000 freedom units for 47 US dollars. So that's it. Thanks for watching today. I know it was a long one, a long lesson, but I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got some value from it, and hope you have a better understanding of this perfectly, beautifully, masterfully designed network we call Bitcoin. So that's it. Have yourselves a great day. We'll be back here next week on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow morning here, and we'll see you then. So thanks, everybody. Have yourselves an amazing day today, the best day of your life, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.